Greetings to those who venture into the annals of history to uncover the truth behind the figures who shaped it. I am Odoacer, often maligned as the barbarian who toppled the mighty Roman Empire, marking the end of a grand epoch. But my story is not one of mere conquest and destruction. It is a tale of ambition, betrayal, survival, and ultimately an attempt to forge a new order in a world of chaos. In the story that follows, I will unveil the complexities of my life and reign, defending my actions to posterity and offering a candid reflection on the choices that shaped the destiny of Italy and the remnants of the Western Roman Empire, as well as my insights on your modern world from beyond the veil. My journey began around the year 433, born to Idico, also known as Edeco in your modern tongue, a prominent leader of the Siri tribe, a people of the Germanic world that history often simplistically labels as barbarian. Yet my upbringing was not devoid of sophistication. Raised in the shadow of a rapidly changing world, I witnessed the Great Migration period, a time when numerous tribes displaced by the Huns and other pressures swept across Europe, seeking new lands and opportunities. The Siri, like many others, were drawn to the promise of stability and wealth within the borders of the Roman Empire. I was a Christian, like many who wielded sword and poured blood before and after me, a dark tradition that continues in your modern era. Being a barbarian back then didn't have the same connotations with Christianity that your popes, princes and potentates would yield as a justification for killing and enslaving native and aboriginal peoples to this day. With your politics, religious fundamentalism and decaying democracies, your modern era is bloodier than mine in many ways. The Romans of my day, facing declining manpower and resources, had begun to rely heavily on these so-called barbarian tribes to bolster their armies. We were known as federati, federate allies bound by treaties to serve Rome in exchange for land and status. But promises made were not always promises kept. As a young man, I joined the Roman military ranks, not out of a deep love for Rome, but because it was the surest path to power and survival in a world where old allegiances were crumbling. The Roman Empire, once a beacon of order and civilization, was now a shadow of its former self. I saw it firsthand in 472 AD, during the siege of Rome. I fought alongside Requiem, the formidable kingmaker, who had already placed several emperors on the throne, and subsequently their heads in the trash heap of history. This time he was out against Emperor Anthemius. Anthemius was forced to flee as a beggar, and Requiem had him beheaded. Rome was not the eternal city of unassailable grandeur I had imagined. It was a city of intrigue, corruption, and decaying grandeur. The administrative state was a labyrinth of inefficiency and decadence, a far cry from the disciplined might of the Rome of old. Did I consider myself Roman or barbarian? The question is a false dichotomy, born of the simplistic binaries that history often imposes. I was neither and both. I saw the advantages of Roman civilization, its laws, its culture, its organization, but I also recognized the vitality and strength of my own people. We were not mere savages at Rome's gates. We were part of a complex and evolving world, one in which the old labels no longer sufficed. As the empire's grip weakened, the foederati, myself included, sought more than just pay and promises. We sought a place in this world, a stake in the land we had fought to defend. This desire would soon set me on a collision course with Orestes, the father of Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor of the West. But that tale of betrayal, ambition, and the reshaping of an empire will unfold in the next chapter. Stay with me as I recount the rise of a new order from the ruins of the old, the trials and tribulations of my reign, and the legacy I left behind. For my story, like that of Rome itself, is one of rise and fall, hope and despair, and the relentless march of history. In the next part, I will delve into the events that led to my ascension to the throne, the fall of Orestes, and the exile of Romulus Augustulus. My machinations against Orestes were necessary when he double-crossed us, not giving us the lands in Italy after we supported his usurpation against Julius Nepos. The dawn of a new era was at hand, and it was one I would shape with my own hands. In the twilight of the Roman Empire, the lines between friend and foe blurred, alliances shifted like sand, and the quest for power overshadowed all else. It was a world ripe for the taking, and I, Odoacer, stood at its crossroads. This part of my tale takes us to the dramatic events of 475 AD, a year that would seal the fate of the Western Roman Empire and usher in a new era under my rule. Orestes, once a trusted secretary to the powerful Attila the Hun, had risen to prominence within the Roman political and military spheres. He made a bold move in 475, deposing the legitimate emperor Julius Nepos and installing his young son Romulus Augustulus as a puppet ruler. To the world, Romulus Augustulus might have seemed like a symbol of continuity, but to us, those who served in the ranks of the Federati, he represented a continuation of broken promises and betrayal. Orestes had assured the tribal leaders who supported him, including myself, that he would grant us land in Italy, a promise that held the allure of a stable and prosperous future for our people. But as the months passed, it became clear that Orestes had no intention of keeping his word. Instead, he sought to consolidate power for himself, disregarding the contributions and sacrifices of the Foederati. This betrayal could not stand, for it was not just a matter of land, it was a matter of honor and survival. My machinations against Orestes began in earnest. Gathering support from the disaffected and marginalized, I positioned myself as the champion of those whom the Roman state had failed. The tension reached its peak in August of 476. On the 23rd of that month, my troops proclaimed me king, rejecting the authority of both Orestes and his puppet son. We moved swiftly, capturing and executing Orestes at Placentia, modern Piacenza. As for Romulus Augustulus, I spared the boy's life, sending him into exile rather than to his death. He was, after all, more a symbol than a ruler, a child caught in the machinations of a world too ruthless for his innocence. Why did I not take the imperial throne, as so many usurpers like Orestes had done before me? The answer lies in the state of the empire itself. The title of emperor had lost its luster, becoming a token rather than a true source of power. The real control lay in the hands of those who commanded armies and resources. By calling myself the King of Italy, I sought to establish a new order, one that recognized the realities of the time. The empire was fractured, and any hope of restoring it to its former glory was a fantasy. I've seen many a battle and many overstretched lines and strategically unsound campaigns. Instead, I chose to focus on the governance of Italy, consolidating power and ensuring stability in a region that had known little of it in recent years. In the next part of my story, we will explore the challenges and changes that marked my reign, the struggle for control, the evolution of my title, and the shifting dynamics with the Eastern Empire will come to the forefront. We will see how I navigated these treacherous waters, and how the choices I made set the stage for both stability and conflict in the years to come. My reign was not just a time of conquest and power. It was also a time of careful calculation, diplomacy, and the ever-present threat of betrayal. As I stood at the helm of Italy, bearing the title of king, I knew that my position was both precarious and unprecedented. The Roman Empire, once the unchallenged master of the Mediterranean world, had crumbled into a collection of fragmented territories. This was a new Europe. My reign, which began in 476 AD, was marked by an effort to maintain stability in a land where chaos threatened to reign. Yet, despite the turmoil, I sought to govern with a sense of continuity and respect for the traditions of the Roman state, while also acknowledging the new reality of Germanic rule. Rome had had many emperors in the course of a millennium who were not of Rome's senatorial classes, nor even born in Italy. In many ways, my rule was no different. In the aftermath of my ascension, the question that loomed large was what had truly changed. The structures of Roman administration largely remained intact. The Senate continued to convene in Rome. The laws of the Roman state governed the land, and Latin was still the language of the educated and the elite. Yet beneath this veneer of continuity, a profound transformation was taking place. The old Roman aristocracy had been marginalized, their power eroded by years of political instability and military defeats. In their place, a new ruling class, composed of Germanic leaders like myself, began to assert its influence. Despite the continuity in governance, my rule was distinct from that of the Roman emperors who preceded me. I chose not to revive the title of emperor in the West, recognizing the hollow nature of such a title in the face of the empire's disintegration. Instead, I embraced the title of King of Italy, a pragmatic decision that acknowledged the reality of my power base while distancing myself from the futile pretense of restoring the Western Roman Empire. This choice was not merely symbolic. It was a declaration of a new order, one in which the Roman and Germanic elements coexisted in a delicate balance. My relationship with the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno was a cornerstone of my foreign policy. Initially, Zeno granted me the rank of patrician, a recognition that lent legitimacy to my rule. However, this relationship was fraught with tension and mutual suspicion. While I minted coins bearing Zeno's image, symbolizing a nominal allegiance, I also supported his opponents such as Illus, who sought to depose him. This dual approach was a calculated strategy, a way to navigate the complex political landscape while maintaining a degree of autonomy. In 480 AD, I invaded Dalmatia, seeking to expand my control over the former territories of the Western Empire. This move was both a demonstration of my power and a response to the instability that continued to plague the region. By 482, I had successfully annexed Dalmatia, further consolidating my position. However, this expansionist policy also brought me into conflict with other Germanic tribes in the Eastern Empire, setting the stage for future conflicts. One of the most significant challenges of my reign was the ongoing unrest among the Germanic tribes. While my rule was relatively stable, there were sporadic outbreaks of violence, particularly in the early years. The distribution of land to my followers was a contentious issue, as it involved balancing the needs of the new Germanic elite with those of the existing Roman landowners. This delicate balancing act required careful diplomacy and often resulted in tensions that threatened to destabilize the fragile peace I had established. My decision to support Illus in his rebellion against Zeno in 484 was a turning point in my relationship with the Eastern Empire. Zeno, in retaliation, incited the Rughi to attack Italy, a clear indication that my support for Illus had not gone unnoticed. In response, I launched a campaign against the Rughi, crossing the Danube in the winter of 487-488 and decisively defeating them. This victory solidified my control over Italy and sent a clear message to Zeno and other potential adversaries that I was not to be underestimated. However, this victory was not without its costs. The tension between myself and Zeno continued to simmer, culminating in Zeno's decision to send Theodoric the Great, leader of the Ostrogoths, to Italy, with the mandate to overthrow me. Theodoric, like me, was a product of the turbulent times, a Germanic leader who had risen to power within the Roman military structure. His arrival in Italy in 489 marked the beginning of the end for my reign, as he quickly gained the support of the Roman Senate and the people, who were weary of the ongoing conflicts and instability. As Theodoric's forces advanced, my control over Italy began to erode. By August 490, I had retreated to the fortified city of Ravenna, one of the last bastions of my rule. For nearly 3 years, I held out against Theodoric's siege, a testament to the strength of my resolve and the loyalty of my followers. But the situation was untenable. Supplies dwindled and morale weakened. Finally, in March 493, I agreed to a truce with Theodoric, hoping to negotiate a peaceful resolution. The banquet that followed, however, would prove to be my undoing. Theodoric, under the guise of reconciliation, invited me to a feast. But it was no ordinary feast. As we were dining, Theodoric struck. He killed me with his own hand, ending my life and reign in one swift, brutal act. Some would call such an act against a guest a true act of barbarity. I wonder, was that the inspiration for the Red Wedding in the Game of Thrones? Much of history is wilder than fiction, as you'll see in our other videos. In the next part of my story, we will delve into the aftermath of my death and the legacy I left behind. Theodoric's rule would usher in a new chapter for Italy, one that saw a blend of Roman and Gothic cultures. But the question remains, was my fall the true end of the Roman Empire? Or was it the beginning of a new era that continued to carry the torch of Roman civilization in a different form? The answers lie in the tumultuous years that followed and the lasting impact of my decisions on the course of history. The banquet in March 493 marked not only the end of my reign but also a turning point in the history of Italy. My life was taken by Theodoric the Great in a moment of calculated betrayal, a scene so dramatic that it could be straight out of a saga or a television series. Indeed, my end has often been compared to the infamous Red Wedding from Game of Thrones, a parallel that highlights the brutal reality of power struggles and the precarious nature of leadership in those times. As I fell, Theodoric assumed control over Italy, consolidating power and establishing his rule over a kingdom that had once been mine. The transition of power from me to Theodoric was not merely a change of rulers, it was a transformation in governance and cultural identity. Theodoric, like myself, sought to balance the Roman administrative apparatus with the new reality of Germanic rule. However, where I had maintained a more Roman-centric approach, Theodoric embraced a fusion of Roman and Gothic cultures, striving to preserve the heritage of Rome while integrating his people into the fabric of the land. Under Theodoric's rule, Italy saw a period of relative stability and cultural revival. His reign was marked by efforts to repair and restore the infrastructure and public buildings of Italy, many of which had suffered from neglect and warfare. The Colosseum, for instance, underwent renovations, and the Senate continued to function, albeit with reduced influence compared to its former glory. In fact, the Roman Senate survived until sometime around 580 AD. No one knows its true date of demise or the year. Maybe it simply faded into obscurity. Theodoric's policies were aimed at winning the loyalty of the Roman population and establishing a cohesive society where Roman and Gothic identities could coexist. But while Theodoric's rule may have seemed like a continuation of Roman traditions, it also marked a significant departure. The nature of kingship under Theodoric differed from the imperial model. He ruled as a Germanic king rather than a Roman emperor, and his court reflected this hybrid identity. The Gothic influence was evident in the military and administrative systems, and although Latin remained the language of the court and administration, the Gothic language and customs gained prominence. My death and Theodoric's subsequent rule raise a fundamental question about the nature of the Roman Empire and its so-called fall. Did the Roman Empire truly fall when I took power in 476? Or was it a gradual transformation that continued through Theodoric's reign and beyond? The traditional narrative, often echoed by historians, places the fall of Rome in 476, with my ascent marking the end of the Western Roman Empire. Yet this perspective overlooks the complexities of the era and the resilience of Roman institutions and culture. The true end of the Roman Empire, if such a singular event can be pinpointed, may well lie in the Gothic War initiated by the Eastern Roman Emperor Justinian. This conflict, aimed at reclaiming Italy for the Eastern Empire, led to widespread devastation. The prolonged war not only decimated the population, but also caused irreparable damage to the infrastructure and economy of Italy. Cities like Milan, once thriving centers of commerce and culture, were left in ruins. The war's brutality and the subsequent Justinian Plague brought by the armies of Belisarius further depopulated and weakened the region. The Gothic War and its aftermath arguably dealt a more significant blow to the remnants of Roman civilization in Italy than my reign or even Theodoric's. The devastation wrought by the conflict, combined with the Justinian Plague, brought over by Justinian's commander Belisarius and his forces, led to a dramatic decline in population and economic activity. The city's population, which had been in decline since the mid-5th century, plummeted to a mere fraction of its former size. The Roman Senate, once a bastion of power and influence, became a shadow of its former self, and the cohesive identity of the Roman state in the West was shattered. In reflecting on these events, one might wonder whether my decision to take power in 476 was the catalyst for the empire's final decline, or merely a part of a broader process of transformation. Would the Western Roman Empire have been better served if I had kept it alive under the guise of continuity? Or was the fragmentation and localization of power an inevitable consequence of the times? It's a question that haunts my legacy and one that historians continue to debate. My reign, brief as it was, represented a critical moment in the transition from the ancient world to the medieval period. It was a time of change, where the old Roman structures were being redefined and new powers were emerging. My actions, whether seen as a betrayal or a necessary evolution, set the stage for the future of Italy and the remnants of Roman civilization. As we move into the next part of my story, we will explore the long-term impact of these events on the fate of Italy and the Western Roman Empire. We will look at how Justinian's reconquest and the Gothic War shaped the landscape of the region, and how these events continue to echo through history. We will also consider the enduring legacy of the Roman Empire and the ways in which it influenced subsequent generations, even as its political structure crumbled. The story of Rome did not end with me or Theodoric. It continued to evolve, influencing the development of Europe for centuries to come. In the aftermath of my fall, the question remains, was my decision to claim the throne of Italy the right one? Could the Western Roman Empire have been preserved, or was its dissolution an inevitability brought on by the inexorable march of history? These questions linger, a legacy that, for better or worse, played a part in shaping the world that emerged from the ruins of Rome. The curtain fell on my life in 493, but the story of my reign and its consequences rippled through the centuries. My death, orchestrated by Theodoric the Great, marked the end of one chapter in the tumultuous history of Italy and the wider Roman world. Yet, as the dust settled, the echoes of my decisions, both celebrated and condemned, continued to shape the landscape of Europe. Theodoric's reign, characterized by efforts to synthesize Roman and Gothic cultures, offered a semblance of stability after my demise. However, it was the specter of the Eastern Roman Empire, with its ambitions of reconquest, that would leave a more profound and lasting impact. Theodoric's Italy, often viewed as a continuation of the Roman legacy, was in many ways a hybrid state. Under his rule, Roman laws and customs were maintained, and the infrastructure was repaired and revitalized. The Gothic ruler presented himself not as an outsider, but as a restorer of Roman greatness, a custodian of a legacy that had been fractured but not forgotten. His reign brought a period of relative peace and prosperity, but it was a peace built on the fragile foundation of dual identities, Roman and Gothic. The administration functioned smoothly, the Senate convened, and public works flourished, giving the appearance of continuity and order. Despite these achievements, the question of legitimacy haunted Theodoric's rule. Like me, he was a Germanic king, ruling over a predominantly Roman populace. The distinction was not lost on the inhabitants of Italy or the broader Mediterranean world. Theodoric's careful navigation of Roman traditions and Gothic leadership was a tightrope act that highlighted the uneasy coexistence of these two worlds. This delicate balance was tested by the ever-watchful eyes of the Eastern Roman Empire, led by Justinian, who sought to reclaim the lost territories of the Western Empire and reassert Roman supremacy. The Gothic War, initiated by Justinian's ambition to restore the glory of Rome, was a catastrophic endeavor that reshaped the Italian peninsula. Procopius, Justinian's official historian, described the campaign as a righteous effort to reclaim Rome for the Romans, an act of imperial revival after the so-called fall of Rome in 476. Yet the reality was far more devastating. The war led to widespread destruction, depopulation, and economic collapse. Cities that had once been vibrant centers of commerce and culture were laid to waste. Milan, for instance, was sacked, its population decimated, leaving a haunting void where a bustling metropolis once stood. The destruction was so thorough that much of the population was either killed or enslaved, leaving the city in ruins. These events displaced thousands, erasing years of development and culture. The economic impact of the war was devastating. Trade routes were disrupted. Agricultural production plummeted due to abandoned fields, and inflation soared. The conscription of men into military service further depleted the labor force, exacerbating the economic downturn. Fear and insecurity permeated the atmosphere, as the constant threat of violence and the presence of foreign armies created a pervasive sense of dread. Civilians often found themselves caught between the warring factions, subjected to looting and brutality by both Gothic and Byzantine forces. The war also brought cultural and religious tensions to the fore, as the Byzantine Empire sought to re-establish Orthodox Christianity, clashing with the Arian Christianity practiced by many Goths. This led to religious persecution and further divisions within communities. Amidst the turmoil of the Gothic War, the Justinian Plague swept through the Eastern Roman Empire and beyond, causing widespread mortality and social upheaval. The pandemic, believed to be caused by the Yersinia pestis bacterium, also known as the bubonic plague, was presented with sudden fever, chills, swollen lymph nodes, buboes, and delirium. As many as 100 million may have died from it, and it was the largest plague in Europe until the Black Death infected individuals suffered intense pain, often dying within days. The sight of friends and family succumbing to the disease in such a short time created an atmosphere of dread and helplessness, and many who saw sick loved ones became infected themselves. Fear of contagion led to social isolation and stigmatization of the sick, overwhelming communities and healthcare systems. Corpses piled up, left unburied due to fear or sheer numbers, leading to a breakdown in public health measures and an increase in superstition and panic. The economic impact of the plague was equally severe. The workforce was decimated, causing a sharp economic downturn. Agriculture, trade, and industry suffered as the labor force dwindled, leading to shortages of goods, inflation, and a decline in public services. Survivors faced the loss of family members and community leaders, often leaving them destitute. The psychological impact was profound, with many believing the pandemic to be divine punishment. This led to increased religiosity or a sense of fatalism, altering social norms and behaviors as people grappled with the constant presence of death. Reflecting on these events, it's clear that the Gothic War and the Justinian Plague caused far more devastating than my own rise to power. These events shattered the remnants of the Roman world, leaving cities in ruins and populations decimated. The destruction of infrastructure, economic collapse, and profound social and psychological impact marked the true end of the Western Roman Empire. The suffering and loss inflicted on the Italian people during this period were immense, far surpassing the upheavals of my own time. The devastation of the Gothic War extended beyond mere physical destruction. It marked the final unraveling of the structures that had once defined the Roman Empire in the West. The Senate, already weakened, became little more than a ceremonial body. The urban population, once the backbone of Roman society, dwindled as famine, plague, and continuous warfare took their toll. The once great city of Rome, which had survived sackings and invasions, was reduced to a shadow of its former self, its population a fraction of what it had been. The Eastern Roman Empire's efforts to restore Italy inadvertently accelerated the region's decline, transforming it from a once vital heart of an empire into a fragmented and impoverished land. The impact of Justinian's campaign was felt far beyond Italy. The Gothic War, coupled with the Justinian Plague, which swept through the empire in the mid-6th century, caused a demographic and economic crisis that resonated throughout the Mediterranean world. The plague, brought over by Justinian's armies, decimated populations and further weakened the already fragile state of the region. This period of upheaval and decline marked the true end of the Western Roman Empire, not as a sudden collapse but as a prolonged and painful dissolution. Reflecting on these events from the vantage point of history, one might question the wisdom of my decision to assume power in 476. Was I the catalyst for the empire's final disintegration, or was I simply a figurehead in an already unstoppable process of decline? Could the Western Roman Empire have been saved if I had chosen a different path? Perhaps one that embraced a more conciliatory approach with the Eastern Empire, or sought to preserve the existing structures of Roman governance. Did the fault lie with Orestes and the usurpers and crimes before them? Or in the end, Was it the fault of the Romans themselves who let a republic die for the promises of the rewards of the empire? Or is tyranny in all forms unsustainable? And why doesn't the world collectively reign in unchecked ambition? And why hasn't your modern world learned the true dangers to liberty and freedom at the hands of dictators? These are questions that historians, sociologists, psychologists, and other researchers and scholars continue to debate. But they are also deeply personal reflections on the nature of power and legacy. In my time, I was labeled a usurper, a barbarian who dared to claim a Roman title. Yet my reign, brief as it was, represented a moment of transition, a bridge between the ancient world and the emerging medieval landscape. The decisions I made, the alliances I forged, and the enemies I faced were all part of a larger narrative, one that encompassed the fall of an empire and the birth of a new order. The true end of the Roman Empire was not a single moment, but a series of events that unfolded over decades, each contributing to the eventual transformation of the Mediterranean world. As we ponder the legacy of the Roman Empire and the role figures like myself played in its history, we are reminded of the complex interplay of fate, ambition, and circumstance. The Gothic War and Justinian's campaigns, often seen as a final chapter in the story of Rome, were in fact a new beginning, one that set the stage for the medieval period and the rise of new powers and cultures. The fractured landscape of post-Roman Italy, divided among various Germanic kingdoms and later Byzantine territories, persisted until the unification of Italy in the 19th century. The legacy of the Roman Empire, therefore, is not one of a clean end, but of a continual evolution, influencing everything from law and governance to culture and language. In the next and final part of my story, we will explore the enduring impact of the Roman legacy on modern society and culture. We will reflect on the lessons of history and how the story of Rome, its rise, fall, and transformation, continues to resonate today. From the ruins of ancient cities to the coins and artifacts that tell the tale of a bygone era, the legacy of Rome lives on, offering insights into the nature of power, civilization, and human endurance. As we conclude this journey, we will consider what it means to be a part of this shared history and how the Renaissance spirit, with its commitment to knowledge, truth, and humanitarian values, can guide us in understanding our past and shaping our future. As I sit on the edge of history, contemplating the long shadow cast by the Roman Empire, I find myself asking whether my actions in 476 AD were justified. The decision to seize power was not made lightly, nor was it driven solely by personal ambition. It was a response to a moment of opportunity and necessity, a bid to secure stability and reward those who had fought for it. But did I make the right choice? Could a different path have preserved the Western Roman Empire, sparing Italy the horrors of the Gothic War and the devastation wrought by Justinian's reconquest? These questions are not merely academic. They are a meditation on the nature of power, leadership, and the unforeseen consequences of our actions. My reign, though brief, was a pivotal moment in the transition from the ancient world to the medieval era. It highlighted the tensions between the fading Roman identity and the emerging Germanic influence, a dynamic that would shape the cultural and political landscape of Europe for centuries. Was I the symptom or the cause of the empire's fall, or both? Looking back, I wonder if the Western Roman Empire could have been saved by a more diplomatic approach, perhaps by forging a stronger alliance with the Eastern Roman Empire or maintaining a unified front against external threats. My failure to navigate these complexities effectively led to my downfall and paved the way for Theodoric's rule and Justinian's destructive campaigns. The Gothic War in particular left Italy in ruins, decimating its population and infrastructure. The once great cities of Rome, Milan, and others were reduced to shadows of their former selves, their vibrant cultures snuffed out by warfare and plague. The devastation wrought by the Gothic War and the Justinian Plague raises the question of whether the Roman Empire's true fall occurred not in 476, but during these later events. The suffering and loss inflicted on the Italian people during this period were immense, far surpassing the upheavals of my own time. The Eastern Roman Empire's attempt to reclaim Italy ultimately led to a hollow victory. The land was retaken, but at an enormous cost, both human and cultural. The region's fragmentation persisted, with various Germanic and Byzantine powers vying for control until the eventual unification of Italy in the 19th century. In the centuries following my reign, the legacy of the Roman Empire has continued to evolve. The Roman legal and administrative systems, cultural achievements, and architectural marvels have left an indelible mark on Western civilization. Even today, the ruins of ancient Rome, from the Colosseum to the Roman Forum, stand as testament to a once great empire's enduring influence. The study of Roman history, literature, and philosophy continues to inspire scholars and enthusiasts alike, offering insights into the complexities of governance, society, and human nature. In the end, let us ask the question, was the Roman Empire worth saving? Was it benefiting the populace? Was it strong enough to defend itself from the rank tyranny, greed, and corruption amongst its own leaders? Were there enough safeguards and protections against bad actors trying to usurp power? Was the populace willing to stand up to injustice? Were they more concerned about self-interest than their fellow citizens? These are questions you should be asking yourselves right now about your own nations. The parallels are genuine. In Rome's case, after countless succession attempts and the games for the imperial throne, after wars, disease, starvation, and growing poverty that followed, the people were beleaguered, bereft, and many were just trying to survive. That's the true lot of most of the people of this world. As we look to the future, the Renaissance spirit embodies the ideals of learning, growth, and a deep appreciation for the shared history that binds humanity. This spirit is not just a celebration of the past, but a call to action for the present and future, a commitment to justice, equity, and humanitarian values. It encourages us to explore the rich tapestry of our collective heritage, to seek out knowledge both lost to time and yet to be discovered, and to apply these lessons in our pursuit of a better world. The Renaissance spirit, more than just a philosophy or style, is a way of living. It invites us to embrace truth and knowledge, to cultivate an understanding and compassion for humanity and our shared history, and to strive to be better stewards of the earth and to each other. This approach can help us navigate the challenges of our time, from social and environmental justice to cultural preservation and innovation. For those who wish to delve deeper into the legacy of Rome and its impact, experiential travel to ancient sites, collecting Roman coins and artifacts, and engaging with scholarly works offer a rich and immersive experience. These pursuits not only deepen our understanding of history, but also connect us to the enduring human stories that continue to resonate across millennia. In reflecting on my own legacy, I cannot help but acknowledge the complexities and contradictions of my time. I was both a product of my era and a shaper of events, a figure caught between the fading light of Rome and the dawn of a new age. Whether my actions hastened the fall of Rome or merely marked a stage in its transformation, the consequences of my decisions are etched in the annals of history. As you, the audience of this tale, reflect on the story of Rome, I invite you to consider the lessons it offers for our own time. The pursuit of knowledge, the quest for justice, and the commitment to humanitarian values are as relevant today as they were in my era. By embracing these principles, we can honor the legacy of the past while forging a brighter future. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history. Our channel, known as the Renaissance Spirit, is dedicated to the pursuits of a just, equitable, and humanitarian world. We explore topics that span history, politics, religion, personal development, society, culture, social and environmental justice, and other subjects in the liberal arts and sciences, including the fascinating history of ancient Rome and the Roman Empire. Living the Renaissance spirit means engaging with history not as a distant past, but as a living dialogue, constantly informing and enriching our present, and the Renaissance spirit is a reminder of our dialogue with the future, our progeny and posterity, our legacy. Will we grant them a future free from fear of climate change and tales of the end of democracy? Will they admonish us for our sins and omissions, Or will they remember us fondly as saviors of humanity and the natural world? I hope this telling has helped give context to one of the greatest events in our shared history, as well as a deeper appreciation for history. Please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share our channel with others. If you're looking to explore and experience what life has to offer, I'm sure you'll enjoy the other videos on our channel. And before you go, take the quiz next to see if you're a Renaissance spirit. Historia non decessit, solum legatum nostrum.
Tua gloria, in lacrimis et suspiris tecando, tu splendor, tua virtus, tua memoria, perierunt ut stelle in nocte obscuro. Roma weeps, its waters choked with dust. Once vibrant markets now lie desolate. The gods themselves, their marble forms unjust, abandoned altars silent consecrate. O Roma mother, your grandeur fades. In tears and sighs I sing your requiem. Your legacy, your valor, your accolades, lost like stars in the dark abyss ad infinitum. Oh Roma mother, your grandeur fades. In tears and sighs I sing your requiem. Your legacy, your valor, your accolades, lost like stars in the dark abyss ad infinitum. Vidi imperium crescere flamma et ferro, senatores et plebs unaris publica. Nunc solitudinem patior lacrimas effero, et in cinerem redacta est nostra historia. Nostra tua gloria, in lacrimis et suspiris tecando, tu splendor, tua virtus, tua memoria, perierunt ut stelle in nocte obscuro. My mother, your grandeur fades. In tears and sighs I sing your requiem. Your legacy, your valor, your accolades, lost like stars in the dark abyss ad infinitum.